You're always the loser. There's a version of losing that nobody prepares you for. Not the kind where you fail a test or lose a job or get broken up with in a parking lot while your hazards are still on. That kind of losing is clean. It hurts, but it has a shape. You know what you lost. You know when it happened. You can point to the moment and say, that's the one. That's where it went wrong. The kind I'm talking about doesn't have a moment. It's the kind where you keep showing up, keep trying, keep being the bigger person, keep choosing the high road, and somehow, at the end of all of it, you're still the one sitting alone wondering where you went wrong. You did everything right, or at least you did more right than wrong, and you still lost. Not once, every time, and you start to wonder if that's just your thing, if losing is just something that happens to you specifically. I've been thinking about this for a while now, not in a wallowing way, more like there's something here I haven't named yet, and I need to name it before it keeps running my life. Because I think most of us who always end up losing in relationships, friendships, romantic stuff, family stuff, doesn't matter. We don't lose because we're bad at this. We lose because of something that looks like a strength from the outside, something that people compliment us for, something we were taught was the right way to be. We lose because we care more. And I know how that sounds. I know I care too much is the thing everyone says when they want to avoid accountability. Like, yeah, sure, buddy, you care too much. That's why you burned the whole thing down. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the person who cares so much they become controlling or jealous or obsessive. That's a different thing. I'm talking about the person who genuinely, quietly, consistently loves people harder than those people love them back, and keeps doing it, and can't stop, and doesn't know why. That person always loses. Not dramatically, just slowly, over and over again. Let me back up. I think it starts young. Not in some deep trauma way. I'm not trying to make this a therapy session. But I do think most of us learned early what role we were playing. And some of us learned that our role was to be the one who holds things together. Maybe you were the kid who noticed when mom was in a mood and adjusted accordingly. Maybe you were the one in your friend group who everyone came to when stuff was falling apart. But when your stuff was falling apart, you kind of just handled it yourself because it felt like too much to ask. Maybe you were the sibling who kept the peace, the partner who apologized first even when you weren't wrong, just because the silence was too heavy. You learned that love looked like management, like anticipation, like making yourself small enough that everyone else could be big. And here's the thing, and it worked. People liked you, people needed you, people said you were the glue, the rock, the steady one. Nobody asked if the glue was tired, so you kept going. You got good at it, really good. You got so good at reading rooms and adjusting and being whatever the situation needed that you kind of forgot to figure out what you needed. Or maybe you knew somewhere, but asking for it felt like breaking a rule you didn't write, but somehow agreed to. And that pattern, that beautiful, exhausting, self-erasing pattern, follows you into every relationship you ever have. Here's how it plays out in practice. You meet someone, it could be a friend, could be someone you're falling for, doesn't matter. You connect, it feels real. And from the jump, you're in it, you're present. You remember the details, you follow up on the thing they mentioned 2 weeks ago. You show up when you said you would. You notice when something's off and you say something. They like this about you. They tell you. You're different, they say. You actually listen, you actually care, and you feel it. That warmth of being seen, of being valued, of finally being in something that feels like it matches what you've been putting out for years. Except, slowly, quietly, you start to notice the math doesn't add up. You text first most of the time. You're the one who makes the plan. When something good happens to you, you tell them, and they respond warmly but briefly and then pivot to themselves. And when something good happens to them, you ask follow-up questions. You want to know everything. You're genuinely excited for them. They don't do that for you. Not in the same way, and you tell yourself it's fine. People show love differently. You can't expect everyone to be exactly like you. That would be unfair. That would be projecting. So you keep going. But then something hard happens to you, something real, and you reach out and they're supportive, but it feels surface level, like they're being a good person in the way you are a good person to a coworker you don't know that well. Polite, present, but not in it with you. And you know the difference. You know what it feels like when someone is actually in it with you because you've been in it with them. You know what it feels like to sit with someone in their hard thing. You've done it. You're good at it. They're not doing that. They're being kind, but they're not in it with you. And here's the moment, here's the fork in the road that most of us don't even know we're standing at. You could say something, you could name it, you could say, hey, I feel like I'm carrying more of this than you are, and I need that to change. But you don't, because that feels like an accusation, because you don't want to be the person who keeps score. Because what if you're wrong? What if you're being too sensitive? What if bringing it up ruins the whole thing and then you lose them anyway and it's your fault? So you say nothing, and you adjust your expectations down a little, and you keep going. And 6 months later, you're half the person you were when you started this, and they're exactly the same, and you're exhausted, and you don't even know why. That's the loss. That's the one that doesn't have a moment. I want to talk about the hope problem, because I think hope is actually the engine of all of this. Not hope in the inspirational poster sense. I mean hope in the very specific, very quiet sense of, I think if I keep being this way, eventually it'll come back to me. You believe somewhere underneath everything that love is a long game, that consistency gets rewarded, that if you keep showing up and being real and caring deeply enough, one day the person on the other end of it will match you, will finally see what you've been putting out and rise to meet it. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes people do wake up. Sometimes the thing you've been patient for actually blooms, but a lot of the time, and I think most of us know this but don't want to say it, a lot of the time, the hope is just delay. It's a way of not having to grieve something that's clearly already gone. Because as long as you're hoping, you don't have to admit that the version of this you wanted was never actually available. That's brutal to accept. That someone you love genuinely, deeply, for real, that someone might just not be built to love you back the way you need. Not because they're bad, not because you did anything wrong, just because they're different. They're wired different. They're at a different place. They need different things. You can love someone and still be wrong for each other. You can care about someone and still be the wrong shape for the hole they're trying to fill. That is a complete sentence. That is the whole truth. There's no fix at the end of it. And when you're the person who loves more, when you're always the one who's more in it, more invested, more hopeful, that truth hits different. Because it means all that extra love you were putting out wasn't the solution. It was just yours. It lived in you. It didn't change anything. That's the part that makes you feel like a loser. But here's where I want to sit for a second, because I've been turning this over for a while, and I think there's something we get wrong about what losing actually means. We treat losing like it's about outcome. You win if the relationship lasts. You lose if it ends. You win if they choose you. You lose if they don't. You win if you stop caring first. You lose if you still care when they've already moved on. By that math, yeah. If you're the one who cares more, you lose every time. You will always be the last one in and the last one out and the one who misses it the longest. But I'm not sure that's actually losing. I think what we call losing in love is often just feeling more. And feeling more is not the same as being worth less. It is not a character flaw. It is not a weakness. It is actually one of the rarest things a person can have. Most people spend their whole lives looking for someone who will love them with real depth, real presence, someone who actually listens, who actually shows up, who actually stays. And you who always ends up on the losing side of this, you are that person. You are the thing other people are searching for. The problem isn't that you care too much. The problem is that you keep handing that to people who can't hold it. And I know that sounds like I'm just reframing the same loss as a gift, which is a little bit of a cope. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. You can call it beautiful all you want, but it still hurts to be in a mostly empty thing when you wanted something full. But I do think there's a real difference between I keep losing because something is wrong with me, and I keep losing because I keep choosing people who can't match what I'm bringing. One of those is a sentence about your worth. The other is a sentence about your pattern. And patterns can change. Worth can't, because it was never the issue. Let me talk about the aftermath for a second, because I think that's where the real damage lives. When you've been the one who cared more enough times, something shifts in you. You start to get suspicious of your own feelings. You fall for someone and there's this voice in the back of your head, quiet but consistent, that says, I don't. You know how this goes. You know where you end up. So you hedge. You hold back a little. You don't text as much as you want to. You don't say the thing you're feeling right away. You play it cooler than you are because you've learned somewhere in your body that the full version of you is too much. And then, and this is the part that's really something, you end up in relationships where you're actually not fully present, where you're performing a version of yourself that's been dialed back. And those relationships don't work either, because you're not actually in them. And you lose those too. So now you're losing when you care too much and losing when you try to care less. There's no version of this that's working, and the voice in the back of your head gets louder. See? You told you. You're just bad at this. You always lose, but you're not bad at it. You're just protecting yourself with a tool that's hurting you. The hedging, the holding back, the performance of indifference, that's not protection. That's just a different kind of losing. Slower, quieter, but still losing. Because you end up alone anyway. Except this time you're also not yourself. I think the thing that actually needs to change, and I'm saying this as much to myself as anyone, is not the caring. Don't stop caring. Please don't let the world do that to you. The thing that needs to change is the selection, where you're putting it. Because if you're honest, really honest, you probably knew early. You probably saw the signs, the texts that were always a little shorter than yours, the way they talked about their ex with a little too much energy, going either direction, the way they went quiet when you needed them to go loud, the way the effort was always a little asymmetrical. You saw it, and you talked yourself out of it, because they had so many other good things, and who are you to expect everything? And maybe you're asking for too much, and maybe you just need to give it time. Time doesn't fix asymmetry. Time just shows you what was always true. You have to get better at believing people when they show you who they are early, not cynically, not with your walls up from the jump, but with your eyes open, with the part of you that actually knows what it needs allowed to speak, without being immediately overruled by the part of you that just wants it to work. The right person is not going to require you to shrink yourself to make the relationship function. The right person is not going to make you wonder consistently where you stand. The right person is not going to be a project you're optimistic about. They're going to be someone who makes the asymmetry hard to find because they're actually trying. That person exists. I genuinely believe that. And I think the reason a lot of us haven't found them yet is not because we're unlovable or broken or too much. It's because we keep confusing potential with reality. We keep loving the idea of someone at the expense of the truth of them. So here's where I land on this. You're always the loser. Yeah, in a specific, limited, outcome-based reading of the word. Sure, you care more, you hurt more, you stay longer, you miss it harder when it's gone. But you're not losing at the thing that actually matters. You're not losing your capacity to feel. You're not losing your ability to be present for someone. You're not losing your willingness to be vulnerable even after it's burned you, even though it probably should have made you colder by now, but it didn't. That's not a bug. That is, genuinely, without irony, the whole thing. That's the part of a person that makes love feel like love instead of just convenience. You've been calling it a weakness your whole life because it's kept costing you. But it was never the problem. It was always the best thing about you. The world just kept putting it in front of the wrong people. That's a solvable thing. It's a slow, uncomfortable, sometimes heartbreaking thing to solve. But it's solvable. You're not cursed. You're not broken. You're not destined to always be on the losing side of this. You just need to stop handing your rarest quality to people who don't know what to do with it and start giving it to someone who already knows what they have. I used to believe that some people were meant to be in your life forever. That once you found someone who felt like home, someone who made the world quiet and the chaos manageable, you'd never have to let them go. She was that person. Every laugh, every small touch, every moment we shared felt like proof that this was different, that this was real, that maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of love people write songs about. But the truth is, I stayed too long. I held on too tightly. I gave her all the parts of me I thought would make her stay, and somehow it wasn't enough. She started drifting, slowly, quietly. At first it was easy to ignore. A missed call here, a delayed reply there. I told myself it was work, stress, life getting in the way. I rationalized everything. I convinced myself that if I just waited, if I just gave her space, everything would go back to the way it was. But space doesn't fix distance when someone doesn't want to bridge it. And then the signs became impossible to ignore. The way her energy shifted when I was around. The way her eyes no longer lingered. The way her voice sounded polite instead of soft. Like she was here, but not really. And that's when the doubt started. The questions that eat at you late at night. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? Did I miss a sign, a word, a glance that could have made her stay? I kept replaying every moment, every conversation, every laugh, trying to find the turning point, trying to figure out when exactly the person I thought I knew stopped feeling the same way. And slowly, painfully, I realized something that broke me in pieces. Love isn't always enough, even when you care more, even when you give more. Even when your heart is wide open, it's not a guarantee that the other person will choose you the way you choose them. I lost her, the girl of my dreams, the one I imagined a future with, the one who made everything feel possible. She's gone, and the worst part, she didn't leave with anger. She didn't leave with a fight. She left quietly, slowly, like the space between us stretched so wide that neither of us could cross it anymore. Now I sit with the emptiness, the ache of missing someone who no longer wants to be missed, the heaviness of realizing that some dreams don't last. And I have to ask myself the hardest question of all. How do I move on when she was everything I thought I wanted? That's when it hit me. It wasn't just that she left. It was that I had been holding on to a version of her that never truly existed. I realized I had been clinging to hope instead of reality, clinging to the idea of her, the idea of us, rather than seeing who she really was and how things truly were between us. I had given her my everything without ever stopping to ask if it was being received the way I imagined. I overanalyzed every text, every laugh, every small moment, trying to find meaning where maybe there wasn't any. And in the process, I lost myself a little. I saw patterns I had ignored because they were uncomfortable to face. The late replies, the canceled plans, the enthusiasm that faded when I needed it most, the way she only showed up when it was convenient for her. I had made excuses for her. I had rationalized it, told myself, maybe she's busy, maybe she's stressed, maybe she doesn't know how to say what she feels. But deep down, I knew the truth. She wasn't choosing me, and that's when the self-reflection got real. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It wasn't that I loved too hard or too fast. It was that I was loving someone who wasn't ready, someone who couldn't meet me where I stood. I kept asking myself, why do I care so much about someone who doesn't care the same way? And the answer wasn't simple. I cared because I allowed myself to care. I cared because I invested my heart where it wasn't being nurtured. I cared because I believed in the what could be instead of the what is. I had been overgiving, overthinking, overhoping, and in the process I had allowed my happiness to hinge on someone else's choices. That was the real pattern, the dangerous one, the one that left me feeling empty, desperate, and questioning my worth. The realization was painful, but it was also freeing. It wasn't about blaming her, it wasn't about resenting her for leaving. It was about understanding how I got here, about seeing the ways I had let hope blind me to reality, about recognizing the parts of myself I needed to protect moving forward. It wasn't easy to admit, but I had to face it. I had to stop chasing someone who wasn't chasing me. I had to stop convincing myself that patience and loyalty could force love. I had to accept that sometimes, no matter how much you give, it just isn't enough. When you finally see the patterns, the truth isn't cruel. It's clear. And clarity is the first step toward moving on. The first step toward moving on wasn't forgetting her. It wasn't pretending I didn't care. It wasn't erasing the memories or the way my chest tightened every time her name appeared on my phone. The first step was deciding that I deserved clarity, respect, and reciprocity. I began setting boundaries, small ones at first. I stopped checking my phone obsessively. I stopped reading into her every word, every pause, every tiny signal. I stopped waiting for messages that might never come. I stopped hoping for a version of her that only existed in my mind. And in that space, this quiet, deliberate space, I started to notice something powerful. I could breathe again. I didn't need her validation to feel alive. I didn't need her attention to feel worthy. I didn't need her affection to prove my capacity to love. I began redirecting the energy I had spent on her, on analyzing, on rationalizing, on hoping, back into myself. I invested in the parts of me I had neglected. I did things that made me feel strong, whole, and alive again. I stopped over-explaining my feelings to her. I stopped justifying my worth to someone who had already made their choice. I stopped tolerating the moments of half-love, the silences that burned, the inconsistency that hurt. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to feel power returning to me. I observed my emotions instead of letting them control me. I matched energy where it existed, and I let go where it didn't. I realized that choosing myself didn't make me cold or bitter. It made me steady, grounded, and in control. I didn't turn my back on love. I turned my back on waiting for someone who couldn't meet me. I didn't stop caring. I stopped investing where care wasn't returned. I didn't stop hoping. I started hoping for something mutual, for a love that didn't feel like a battle of patience and perseverance. For the first time in a long while, I felt calm inside my own skin. I felt safe with my own heart. I felt like the person I had been before all the waiting, all the chasing, all the questioning. And that calm, that quiet strength was revolutionary, because it showed me that I didn't need her to be complete, that I didn't need her to feel whole, that I could hold my own heart and protect it without shame or guilt. I started seeing my past love not as a failure, but as preparation, as a lesson in what I would and wouldn't accept, as a reminder that my heart is powerful, but it deserves reciprocity, not half measures. The more I honored my boundaries, the more I recognized my worth. The more I invested in myself, the less I ached for what wasn't mine to hold. And in that space, I started feeling free. Eventually, the ache softened. Not because I forgot her, not because I stopped caring, but because I stopped letting her absence define me. I realized that moving on wasn't about erasing what we had. It wasn't about pretending the late nights, the small laughs, the moments I thought would last forever never happened. It was about carrying them differently, without letting them weigh me down, without letting them keep me from living. I started living for me, not in a loud, dramatic way, not to prove anything to anyone. I lived for the quiet moments where I could feel myself again, the mornings where I woke up without the heaviness of waiting, the evenings where I went to bed proud of how I spent my day instead of consumed by what could have been. And in that space, I discovered something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I wasn't bitter, I wasn't angry, I wasn't trapped in what I had lost. I was steady, I was clear, I was open to life again. I realized the truth. Love isn't about holding on to someone who doesn't choose you. Love is about knowing your worth, protecting your heart, and being willing to step away when it isn't returned fully. Some people stay in your life forever, some leave quietly like she did. And that's okay. It doesn't diminish what you felt. It doesn't make your heart smaller or weaker, it makes you human. I learned to honor the love I gave her by giving that same love to myself. I stopped chasing what wasn't meant for me and started chasing clarity, joy, and connection that was mutual. I began to trust that the right people would meet me where I stood, fully, consistently, willingly. And so I moved on, not with resentment, not with regret, but with quiet confidence. I moved on knowing that the girl of my dreams wasn't lost. She simply wasn't the one for me. And that was enough, because the truth is, letting go isn't giving up. It's making space for something real, something that doesn't require hope to fill in the gaps, something that chooses you as fully as you choose it. And now I'm ready. Pain didn't break me. It refined me. Loss didn't define me. It prepared me. And moving on isn't the end. It's the beginning. I stayed, I learned, I grew, and now I'm alive again. You know what hurts the most? It's not being rejected. It's realizing the person you care about never felt the same way to begin with. Not in the way you did. Not in the way you hoped they did. And the worst part is, you didn't realize it right away. Because at first everything felt real. The conversations felt natural. The laughs felt genuine. The late night talks felt personal. There were moments where it seemed like something deeper was building between you. Little moments that made you believe this could actually turn into something. And when you start believing that, your heart slowly gets involved. Not all at once, but piece by piece. You start paying more attention to them. You notice the way their voice changes when they're excited. The way they talk about the things they care about. The way their mood shifts when something's bothering them. You start remembering small details about them without even trying. Things they mentioned once in passing. Their favorite music, their favorite food, the stories about their past, and without realizing it, they begin taking up more space in your mind. You think about them when something funny happens. You think about them when you hear a song they would like. You think about them when something reminds you of a conversation you once had. That's how feelings grow, quietly, naturally, without asking permission. But somewhere along the way, something starts to feel different, not wrong, just uneven. You notice that you're always the one starting conversations. You're the one asking questions, the one keeping things going, the one making the effort to stay connected. They still respond. They still talk to you. They still laugh and joke like everything is normal. But something about it feels lighter for them, like they're enjoying the moment, but not investing in it the same way you are. And you try not to think too much about it because you don't want to ruin what you have. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You tell yourself they might just be busy or distracted or maybe just not good at expressing their feelings. So you keep showing up, you keep being patient, you keep being kind. Because part of you believes that if you're consistent enough, if you're supportive enough, if you care enough, maybe one day something will change. Maybe one day they'll look at you differently. Maybe one day they'll realize you were there all along. Maybe one day the feeling will finally grow on their side too. But deep down, there's a quiet fear you try not to face. A small voice that keeps asking the same question. What if they never feel the same way? And that thought is something your heart isn't ready to accept yet. Title: She Doesn't Feel the Same Way. Part 2. The hardest part isn't the moment you realize she doesn't feel the same way. It's everything that happens before that moment. The waiting, the hoping, the convincing yourself that maybe you just need to give it more time. Because feelings don't always grow instantly, right? Sometimes people just need space. Sometimes they need to see your consistency. Sometimes they need to realize what's right in front of them. At least that's what you keep telling yourself. So you keep showing up. You keep answering her messages. You keep making time for her even when your day is busy. You listen when she talks about her problems. You support her when she's stressed. You try to be the person she can always rely on, the person who understands her, the person who stays. And slowly, you start building this idea in your head, not just about who she is, but about who the two of you could be together. You imagine simple things, conversations that haven't happened yet, moments that might happen someday, little scenarios where everything finally clicks into place. And those thoughts feel good. They make the waiting feel worth it. They make the uncertainty easier to ignore. Because as long as there's still a possibility, you don't have to let go of the hope. But reality has a quiet way of revealing itself. Not all at once. Not with some dramatic moment. Just small things that slowly start adding up. Like the way she talks about someone else, not realizing how it lands when she says it. Or how she mentions a guy she finds attractive. Like it's just normal conversation. Like it wouldn't affect you. Or the way she disappears for hours, sometimes days, then comes back like nothing happened. And you're just happy she replied at all. Even if the message is short, even if the effort feels minimal, you start noticing the imbalance, but you don't want to believe it means something, because admitting the truth would mean facing a reality you've been avoiding, that maybe you care more than she ever will, that maybe you've been building something in your mind that she never intended to build with you. And the worst part is, she didn't lie to you. She didn't promise anything. She didn't say the words that would make you believe she felt the same way. You just filled in the silence yourself. You interpreted the kindness as something deeper, the attention as something meaningful, the connection as something mutual. But kindness isn't always love. Attention isn't always interest. And connection doesn't always mean someone sees you the way you see them. And slowly, the truth starts getting harder to ignore. Not because she suddenly tells you, but because her actions begin saying something your heart can't keep pretending not to hear. She doesn't feel the same way. And the longer you hold on to hope, the heavier that realization becomes. At some point, the truth stops whispering, and it starts becoming impossible to ignore. Not because she finally sits you down and says the words. Most of the time, that conversation never even happens. The truth shows up in quieter ways than that. It shows up in patterns, in effort, in the way someone chooses to show up in your life, or the way they don't. You start noticing things you used to overlook. How you're always the one starting the conversation. How if you stop texting first, the silence stretches longer than you expected. Hours, sometimes days, and eventually you break. You send the message anyway, because pretending you don't care feels harder than admitting that you do. You start noticing the energy difference too. How excited you are when she replies, and how normal it seems for her, like your presence in her life is something she can take or leave, not something she's worried about losing. That realization hurts in a very specific way, Because you're not asking for everything. You're not asking for grand gestures or dramatic confessions. You're just asking for something simple, to feel chosen. But when someone truly wants you, you don't have to beg for that feeling. You don't have to analyze every message. You don't have to question whether you matter. It becomes obvious. And that's when the realization finally hits you. Not all at once, but slowly, like a weight settling on your chest. She doesn't feel the same way. Not in the way you hoped. Not in the way you needed. Maybe she likes you. Maybe she enjoys talking to you. Maybe she appreciates having you around. But there's a difference between appreciating someone and wanting to build something with them. And you start asking yourself questions you were too afraid to ask before. Was I just convenient? Was I just someone who was always there when she needed attention? Was I just filling space in her life while she waited for someone else? Those thoughts sting. But the deeper pain isn't even about her, it's about what you did to yourself while hoping things would change. How long you ignored your own feelings. How long you accepted less than you deserved. How long you told yourself to be patient, when patience wasn't the solution. Because love doesn't grow out of one person trying harder. Love doesn't appear just because you stayed long enough. Love isn't something you can earn by proving your loyalty and realizing that forces you to face a difficult truth. You can't make someone feel something they don't, no matter how good you are to them, no matter how much you care, no matter how much you wish it were different. And once that truth settles in, you're left with a choice, one that hurts either way. Keep holding on to someone who never chose you, or finally let go, even though part of you still wishes she would. Because the hardest thing about loving someone who doesn't feel the same way isn't losing them, it's accepting that you were never really theirs to begin with. At first, letting go doesn't feel like strength, it feels like defeat, like you're walking away from something that could have worked. If only things were slightly different. If only she saw you the way you saw her. If only she realized how much you cared. If only timing was better. If only you had said the right thing at the right moment. Your mind keeps replaying those what ifs over and over again because your heart would rather believe in a small chance than accept a painful truth. But eventually something starts to shift inside you. Not dramatically, not overnight, just slowly. You start noticing how tired you are. Tired of hoping, tired of waiting, tired of checking your phone for a message that may or may not come. Tired of feeling like your happiness depends on someone else's attention. And that's when a different kind of realization hits you, one that hurts, but also frees you. You didn't lose her because you never had her. What you lost was the version of her you created in your mind, the version that loved you back, the version that chose you, the version that saw your worth the same way you saw hers. But that version never actually existed. It was just hope, and hope can be beautiful, but when it's built on the wrong person, it slowly becomes something painful. You start seeing things more clearly, how much effort you gave, how much patience you showed, how much of yourself you poured into someone who never asked for it. And instead of feeling embarrassed about that, you begin to understand something important. There's nothing wrong with loving deeply. There's nothing wrong with caring. There's nothing wrong with believing in someone. The only mistake is giving all of that to someone who was never willing to meet you halfway. And the truth is, one day you're going to meet someone who does. Someone who doesn't make you question where you stand. Someone who doesn't make you guess how they feel. Someone who doesn't make you feel like loving them is a risk. Because when someone truly wants you, you won't have to convince them. You won't have to compete for their attention. You won't have to sit there wondering if you're enough. They'll show you clearly, consistently, without confusion. And when that happens, you'll look back at this version of yourself. The one who stayed too long, the one who hoped too hard, the one who loved someone who couldn't love him back. And instead of feeling regret, you'll feel something else. Gratitude. Because that experience didn't break you. It taught you. It taught you what love shouldn't feel like. And most importantly, it taught you that the right person will never leave you wondering why they don't feel the same way. Because when someone truly loves you, you'll never have to ask that question again. There's a moment after a relationship ends that nobody really prepares you for. It's not the breakup itself. It's what happens after. When everything gets quiet. That's when your mind starts doing something you can't seem to stop. You replay it. The conversations, the moments, the little details that didn't seem important at the time. Your brain starts going back through everything like it's searching for something you missed. You think about the way they said certain things, the tone in their voice during that one argument, the night things felt slightly different but you couldn't explain why. And suddenly those memories feel heavier than they did before, because now you're looking at them with the one thing you didn't have back then, the ending. So your mind keeps asking questions. Was that the moment things started going wrong? Was that when they stopped feeling the same way? Was there something I could have said differently? Something I could have done better? And the worst part is you never get answers. So instead, your brain keeps replaying the same scenes over and over again. Like if you analyze it enough times, you'll finally find the explanation that makes everything make sense. But it never really works that way, because breakups don't usually come from one single moment. They come from 1,000 small things building up quietly over time. Still, that doesn't stop your mind from trying, late at night especially, when the distractions are gone, when your phone isn't buzzing, when the room is dark, when it's just you and your thoughts. That's when the memories get the loudest. You remember the good moments first, the way they used to laugh, the way they looked at you when things were still easy, the little routines you built together without even realizing it. And for a second, it almost feels like they're still there. Then reality comes back, and your mind jumps to the next question. What did I do wrong? Because when someone you loved walks away, it's almost impossible not to assume that somewhere along the way, you messed it up. So you go back through everything again, trying to find the exact moment where things could have been saved. But the truth is, the more you replay it in your head, the more trapped you start to feel in something that already ended. And that's the part nobody talks about. Sometimes the relationship doesn't end when the person leaves. Sometimes it ends weeks later, when you finally stop reliving it. The strange thing about replaying a relationship in your head is that your mind doesn't show you the whole story. It shows you selected scenes, little moments that suddenly feel way more important than they did at the time. You remember the last conversation you had with them. Every word, every pause, every sentence you wish you could take back. You start thinking about what would have happened if you just said something different. Maybe if you had stayed calmer. Maybe if you didn't bring up that one thing. Maybe if you gave them more space. Your brain turns it into this giant what-if loop. What if I did this differently? What if I handled that moment better? What if I noticed the signs earlier? And slowly, without even realizing it, you start rewriting the past in your head. You create these alternate versions of the relationship where everything works out. In those versions, you say the perfect thing. You catch the problems early. You fix the issues before they grow. And in those imaginary timelines, they stay. But reality doesn't work like that. The real relationship didn't have the benefit of hindsight. It was messy. It had misunderstandings. Moments where both of you were tired. Conversations that didn't go the way either of you wanted. And the truth is, two people can genuinely care about each other and still not be able to make it work. But your brain doesn't like accepting that, because accepting that means admitting something painful. Sometimes there wasn't a single moment you could have fixed. Sometimes the ending wasn't about one mistake. It was about two people who just couldn't meet each other where they needed to. Still, your mind keeps searching, because if you can find the moment where everything went wrong, it gives you the illusion that you had control, that maybe you could have prevented the ending. But deep down, you already know something that's hard to accept. If someone was truly meant to stay, the relationship wouldn't collapse because of one imperfect conversation. Love that lasts doesn't disappear over one moment. And when you finally start realizing that, something shifts. The memories don't disappear overnight. You'll still think about them sometimes. But slowly, you stop treating every memory like a clue in a mystery you need to solve. Because some stories don't need to be solved. They just need to be closed. The hardest part about replaying everything in your head is that you think you're searching for closure. But most of the time, you're actually just reopening the wound. Every time you revisit the memories, you're putting yourself back in those moments again. Back in the conversations, back in the arguments, back in the days when things started feeling different. And your brain keeps asking the same question. Why? Why did they stop loving me? Why did things change? Why wasn't I enough for them to stay? But here's the thing about closure. A lot of people think closure comes from the other person explaining everything perfectly. They imagine one final conversation where the other person sits down and says exactly what happened, exactly why things ended, and somehow that explanation makes the pain disappear. But real life rarely works like that. Most endings don't come with perfect explanations. Sometimes people don't even fully understand their own reasons. Sometimes they just feel something change inside them. And that's a terrifying thing to accept. Because if love can change without a clear explanation, then it means there wasn't necessarily a moment you could have prevented. And that's what your mind is trying to fight against. Your mind keeps replaying everything because it wants control. It wants to believe there was a specific moment where the outcome could have been different. But the truth that hurts the most is this. Not every ending is caused by a mistake. Sometimes two people just reach a point where they can't continue together. Not because one of them failed, not because one of them wasn't good enough, but because the relationship itself couldn't keep going. And once that happens, no amount of replaying the past will change it. No amount of analyzing old conversations will bring the person back. All it does is keep you emotionally tied to something that already ended. That's why healing doesn't start when the breakup happens. Healing starts when you stop trying to solve the past. When you finally allow yourself to accept something difficult, the relationship is over. And even though your mind keeps pulling you back into those memories, your life is still moving forward. Whether you're ready for it or not, at some point you start noticing something. The memories aren't hurting you the same way they used to. Not because they disappeared, but because you finally stopped treating them like something you need to fix. For a long time, your mind kept going back to the same moments. The last argument, the last message, the last time you saw them. Like if you could just understand it perfectly, the pain would finally make sense. But eventually you realized something important. You weren't replaying it because the answer was still there. You were replaying it because letting go felt like losing them all over again. So part of you held on, not to the relationship itself, but to the idea that maybe you could still figure it out. Maybe if you understood what went wrong, it would somehow undo the ending. But life doesn't give us that kind of control. Some people enter your life, change you in ways you didn't expect, and then they leave. And you don't always get a clean explanation. You don't always get a moment where everything makes sense. Sometimes all you get is time to slowly accept that the story already reached its ending. And when you finally stop replaying it in your head, you start noticing something else. Your life didn't end with that relationship. There are still new people you haven't met. New memories you haven't made. New moments waiting for you that have nothing to do with the past you've been stuck in. Because the truth is, you were never meant to spend the rest of your life trapped in old conversations or wondering about the words you wish you said differently. You were meant to keep living, and one day, without even realizing when it happened, you'll think about them again. But this time it won't feel like a wound. It'll just feel like a chapter of your life that already ended. And you'll finally understand something that once felt impossible. The past only has power over you, as long as you keep replaying it. Why doesn't she love me? I met her on a Tuesday. Nothing special about the day. No rain, no music playing in the background, no movie moment. Just a random Tuesday. She sat 2 seats in front of me in class, laughing with her friend about something I couldn't hear, but I remember thinking one thing. I want to know what makes her laugh like that. The first time we talked was stupid. I dropped my pen. She picked it up before I could. Here, she said, smiling. 3 seconds. That's how long the conversation lasted. But for some reason, I thought about it the rest of the day. Weeks passed. Eventually, we started talking more. At first, it was small things, homework, classes, teachers we both hated. Then it became normal. We'd sit next to each other, walk out of class together, send random messages late at night. And somewhere along the way, I started noticing things. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The way she laughed at her own jokes. The way she said my name. That's when it happened. I liked her. Everyone around me knew it before I admitted it. My friends would say things like, "Bro, you're down bad." I'd laugh it off. But they were right. Because suddenly everything I did started revolving around her. I'd check my phone hoping she texted. I'd replay conversations in my head. I'd think about what she meant when she said something, over and over again. One night we were texting. It was past midnight. The The conversation slowed down until it turned into one of those deep talks people only have when they're tired. She told me about her fears, about how she overthinks everything, about how she's scared of getting hurt, and I remember staring at my screen thinking, how could anyone hurt someone like her? Then she sent a message. Thanks for always being there. That sentence felt like winning the lottery. Months passed like that. Same routine, talking, laughing, late night conversations, but something was missing. Something obvious. She never flirted, never hinted, never gave me the signals everyone talks about, but she also never left. So I convinced myself it meant something. One day my friend asked me a question. Have you told her you like her yet? I laughed. No. Why not? I didn't have an answer. The truth, I was scared, not of rejection, but of losing what we already had. Then one afternoon everything changed. We were sitting outside after class. The sun was going down. People were walking past us. She was telling me about some guy in her class. Yeah, he's really nice. She said something about the way she said it felt different. I tried to play it cool. Oh yeah? She smiled. I think he likes me. My chest tightened. So, do you like him? She paused, then she nodded. Maybe. I remember smiling. I remember saying something like, that's cool. I remember acting normal. But inside my head, one thought kept repeating. Why isn't it me? That night I stared at my phone. Her contact was at the top of my messages. All I had to do was type 3 words. I like you. But my fingers wouldn't move, because suddenly I realized something. If I sent that message, everything could change. A week later, she told me they were going on a date. She seemed excited, happy, and I tried to be supportive. Hope it goes well, I said. She smiled. Thanks. That night I walked home alone. The same question kept replaying in my head, over and over again. Why doesn't she love me? I was there for her. I listened to her problems. I cared about her. So why him? It took me a long time to understand something. Love isn't a reward. It's not something you earn by being the nicest person. You can't calculate it like a math equation. Care plus time plus loyalty not equal to love. Sometimes people just don't feel the same way. Months later, we stopped talking as much. Not because we fought, just because life moves on. Different classes, different schedules, different people. But every once in a while, I still think about her laugh on that random Tuesday. And if you're watching this right now, maybe you're asking the same question I once did. Why doesn't she love me? And the answer might be something you don't want to hear. Sometimes there isn't a reason. But one day you'll meet someone who looks at you the way you once looked at her. And when that happens, you won't have to ask the question anymore. Because the right person won't make you wonder. They'll make it obvious. You know what the worst part is? It's not the rejection. It's the almost. Because when someone rejects you clearly, it hurts. But at least it makes sense. They say no. You move on. But when someone almost loves you, that's a different type of pain, because you start replaying everything, every conversation, every laugh, every moment you thought meant something, and you start asking yourself questions that never have real answers. Did I say something wrong? Was I not good enough? Did I wait too long? After she started dating that guy, things between us didn't stop immediately. That's what made it worse. We still talked sometimes, still laughed, still had those random conversations that used to make my day. But something had changed, and we both knew it. There was this invisible line between us now. Before, it felt like we were walking towards something. Now it felt like we were standing still, and she was slowly walking away. One night she texted me again. Can I vent for a second? Of course she could. She always could. So I stayed up listening to her talk about problems with her boyfriend, how he didn't understand her, how he didn't listen the way I did, how he wasn't as patient as I was, and the entire time I just sat there thinking one thing. Then why aren't you with me? But I didn't say that. Instead, I said the same thing I always said. I'm here for you. And she replied with the same message she always sent. You're such a good friend. That sentence. You're such a good friend. People say it like it's a compliment. But when you love someone, that sentence feels like a door closing, because suddenly you realize something. You weren't the guy she loved. You were the guy she felt safe with. The guy she vented to. The guy who listened. The guy who stayed. But safety doesn't always create attraction. And that realization messes with your head. Because you start thinking, maybe I should have been different. Maybe I should have flirted more. Maybe I should have been less available. Maybe I should have acted like I didn't care. And that's when something dangerous starts happening. You begin to question the way you are as a person. You start thinking kindness is weakness. You start thinking loyalty is stupidity. You start thinking caring too much is the reason you got hurt. So slowly, you start changing. You stop texting first. You stop opening up. You stop showing people the parts of you that once cared deeply. Because somewhere in your mind, you're trying to protect yourself. I remember the exact moment I noticed that change. She sent me a message one afternoon. Something funny, a meme we both would have laughed at months earlier. I looked at it, and for the first time, I didn't feel anything. Not excitement, not happiness, just nothing. And that scared me more than the heartbreak ever did. Because heartbreak means you cared, but feeling nothing, that means something inside you shut down. That night I stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that happened. And for the first time I asked a different question. Not, why doesn't she love me? But why did I give so much of myself to someone who never asked for it? That realization hits hard. Because the truth is, she never promised me anything. She never said she loved me. She never said we were going to end up together. Those were expectations I built in my own head. And when those expectations broke, I blamed her. But deep down, I knew something. I wasn't just sad about losing her. I was sad about losing the version of me that believed things would work out. The version of me that believed if you cared enough, if you tried hard enough, if you stayed long enough, eventually someone would choose you. But life doesn't work like that. And realizing that changes you quietly, slowly, but permanently. But because after that, you start guarding your heart differently. Not because you want to, but because you remember exactly how it felt when someone almost loved you. And almost can mess someone up for a long time. And the craziest part, even after all that, there were still nights where I caught myself wondering the same thing. Just staring at the ceiling, asking a question I already knew the answer to. Why doesn't she love me? You know what nobody tells you about heartbreak? It doesn't end the day you realize the truth. That moment where everything finally clicks, where you accept she isn't choosing you, where you tell yourself you're done thinking about her. That's not the ending. That's just the beginning of the quiet part. Because after that realization, life keeps moving, but your mind doesn't move as fast. You still catch yourself checking your phone sometimes, not because you expect a message, but because your brain spent so long hoping for one that the habit never fully disappears. You'll hear a song that reminds you of her, or pass a place you both used to talk about, or see something random that you know she would have laughed at, and for half a second, your mind goes straight to her, before you even realize it. It's strange how people can leave your life, but pieces of them stay behind in your routine, in your memories, in the way you think. At first you hate that. You want to forget everything. Every late night conversation, every inside joke, every moment you thought meant something. Because remembering feels like reopening a wound that's trying to close. But memories don't disappear just because you want them to. They fade slowly, and that takes time. During that time, you start noticing something about yourself. Something you didn't see when you were chasing her. You start realizing how much of your energy went into someone who never fully gave theirs back. How much time you spent thinking about what she wanted, what she needed, what she felt, while completely ignoring your own feelings. You start asking yourself questions you never asked before. Why was I okay with being second? Why was I always the one giving more? Why did I keep staying when the signs were obvious? And the honest answer isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's because you liked the idea of her more than the reality. Sometimes it's because you thought if you were patient enough, if you were good enough, eventually she'd realize what she had. But the hardest truth, sometimes people already know exactly what they have. They just don't want it the same way you do. That realization used to make me angry. Not at her, at myself. Because once you see the pattern, you start wondering how many times you ignored your own instincts. There were signs, of course there were. Moments where she pulled away, moments where her effort didn't match yours, moments where you felt confused instead of secure. But every time those moments appeared, you explained them away. You told yourself she was just busy, just stressed, just going through something. You gave her the benefit of the doubt so many times that eventually you stopped questioning anything at all. And that's when you lost control of the situation, not because she manipulated you, but because you convinced yourself that waiting was the same thing as building something. Eventually, though, life forces you to move forward, even if your heart isn't completely ready. Weeks pass, then months. You start focusing on other things, work, friends, your own goals, the parts of your life that existed before she showed up. And slowly, you start feeling like yourself again. Not the exact same person, but a version of you that's a little quieter, a little more cautious, a little harder to read. One day you notice something strange. You go a whole day without thinking about her, then 2, then a week. And when you finally do remember her, the feeling isn't the same, the pain isn't sharp anymore. It's dull, distant, like a memory instead of a wound. That's when you realize something important. You didn't just lose her. You learned something from her. You learned what it feels like to give your heart fully. You learned what it feels like when that heart isn't returned. And most importantly, you learned what it feels like to survive that. Because at one point, and you thought that pain would break you, that it would stay forever, that you'd never stop asking the same question. But eventually, that question starts changing. It stops being, why doesn't she love me? And starts becoming something else. Something quieter, something more honest. Why did I believe someone who never chose me was meant for me? You know what's strange? For the longest time, the question stayed the same. Why doesn't she love me? It sat in the back of your mind like a locked door you couldn't open. You replayed every conversation, every moment, every small detail, trying to find the exact second where something went wrong. Maybe if you had said something different. Maybe if you had waited longer. Maybe if you had been more patient, more confident, more interesting, more enough. That's the dangerous part about unreturned love. It convinces you that the problem must be you. Because if the problem is you, then at least it means you could have fixed it. But the truth is something most people don't realize until much later. Love isn't a test you pass by trying harder. It's not a reward you earn by being patient. It's not something you convince someone to feel. Real love happens naturally. 2 people choosing each other. Not one person chasing while the other hesitates. Not one person waiting while the other decides. Choosing freely every day. And once you understand that, something inside you shifts. You stop looking back at the situation as a failure. You start seeing it as clarity. Because if someone doesn't love you, it doesn't mean you were unlovable. It just means you were loving the wrong person. That realization takes time to accept. At first, it almost feels unfair. Because you gave so much. Your time, your attention, your loyalty, your patience. And in the end, you didn't get the ending you hoped for, but something else happened instead. You changed. You became more aware, more protective of your energy. You started noticing the difference between interest and convenience, between effort and empty words, between someone who enjoys your attention and someone who genuinely values your presence. That kind of awareness doesn't come from easy love. It comes from heartbreak. And one day, without even realizing it, you stop thinking about her in the same way. You remember the story, but you don't feel trapped in it anymore. She becomes part of your past, not the center of your future. And when you think back to the question that once consumed you, why doesn't she love me? You finally understand something. It was never the right question. The real question was never about her feelings. It was about your worth. And the moment you stop measuring your value through someone else's love, that question disappears completely. Because the truth is simple. Someone out there will meet you, and they won't hesitate. They won't need time to figure it out. They won't treat you like an option. They'll see you, they'll choose you, and they'll make that choice obvious. When that day comes, you won't be asking why someone doesn't love you anymore. You'll finally understand that the right person never makes you question it in the first place. Will I ever be loved? There's a question some people carry around that they never really say out loud. It doesn't come up in conversations. It's not something you ask your friends. And it's definitely not something you post online. But it sits quietly in the back of your mind. The question is simple. Will I ever be loved? Not liked, not tolerated, not someone people talk to when they're bored. Loved. The kind of love where someone chooses you. The kind where they stay. Because if you're being honest with yourself, you've probably watched it happen for everyone else. You see couples walking together, friends getting engaged, people talking about their person like they're the most natural thing in the world. And part of you is happy for them. But another part of you can't help wondering, why has that never happened to me? You've tried before. You've talked to people. You've opened up. You've let yourself believe that maybe this time it could be different. And for a moment, it always feels promising. They laugh at your jokes. They text you first. They tell you they enjoy talking to you. And you start to think maybe this is finally it. Maybe this is the person who's going to stay. But then something always changes. The messages get shorter. The effort starts fading. The energy you once felt from them slowly disappears. Till one day you realize something that hurts more than anything. You cared way more than they did. And after that happens enough times, you stop asking what went wrong with the relationship. You start asking what's wrong with you. You look in the mirror and start picking yourself apart. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Maybe I'm too quiet. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I'm just not the type of person someone chooses. And the worst part about that feeling is that nobody around you sees it. To everyone else, you seem normal. You go to work. You talk to people. You laugh when you're supposed to. But inside, there's this quiet loneliness that never really leaves. Because wanting to be loved isn't some dramatic fantasy. It's one of the most human things there is. To have someone who looks at you and thinks, I want this person in my life. Not temporarily, not when it's convenient, but for real. And when you've spent years feeling like that hasn't happened for you yet, that's when the doubt starts creeping in. You start wondering if maybe some people are just meant to watch love happen for everyone else and never experience it themselves. After a while, the question doesn't just stay in the back of your mind. It starts showing up everywhere. You'll be scrolling through your phone and see someone you went to school with, posting pictures with their partner, smiling, laughing, looking like they found something real. And you pause for a second, not because you're jealous in a hateful way, but because you can't help thinking, how did they figure it out? How did they find someone who chose them? Because from where you're standing, it almost feels like everyone else received instructions for love that you never got. Some people fall into relationships so easily, they meet someone, they click, and suddenly they're building a life together. Meanwhile, you're still sitting there wondering why every connection you try seems to fade before it ever becomes something real. You replay old conversations in your head, moments where you thought things were going well, the way they used to respond quickly, the way they seemed interested in you, the way they said things that made you believe they actually cared, and then you remember the shift, that slow change where their energy started pulling away, the delayed replies, the canceled plans, the feeling that you were the only one trying to keep things alive, until eventually you stopped hearing from them altogether. And what hurts the most about those moments isn't just losing the person. It's realizing how easily they walked away. Like the connection that meant so much to you, it didn't really mean that much to them. That's the part that sticks with you. Because after enough of those experiences, something inside you starts changing. You become more cautious. You hesitate before getting excited about someone new. You stop letting yourself believe things too quickly. Not because you don't want love, but because disappointment starts feeling predictable. And eventually you find yourself doing something you never used to do before. You start preparing for people to leave. Even when someone new enters your life and things feel good, there's this quiet voice in the back of your mind saying, don't get too attached. It probably won't last. So instead of enjoying the moment, you hold part of yourself back. You protect your feelings. You stay guarded. And the strange thing about that kind of loneliness is that it doesn't always happen when you're physically alone. You can be surrounded by people, talking, laughing, living your life. But deep down, there's still this quiet uncertainty, because the question never really disappears. Late at night, when everything gets quiet, it comes back again. Will someone ever truly love me? Not temporarily, not out of convenience, but the kind of love where someone looks at you and decides, you're worth staying for. And when you've spent years feeling like you're still waiting for that moment, it's hard not to start wondering if maybe it was never meant for you at all. The hardest part about carrying that question, will I ever be loved, is that eventually it stops sounding like a question. It starts sounding like an answer. After enough disappointments, enough people leaving, enough almost relationships that never become real, something inside you slowly shifts. You stop expecting love, not dramatically, not in some big moment where you say you're done with relationships forever. It's quieter than that. You just stop hoping the same way you used to. When you meet someone new, you don't let yourself imagine a future with them anymore. You don't let your mind wander into those what-if scenarios, because every time you did that in the past, it eventually ended the same way they left. So now you protect yourself. You convince yourself that you don't really need love like other people do. You focus on work, on hobbies. It always hits me hardest when the world is quiet. During the day there's noise, people around me, work, texts, errands, responsibilities. There's a rhythm to life, a way to keep moving without thinking too much. But night doesn't let you hide. Night strips everything down to its raw edges. The first few nights after we broke up, I didn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of my own breathing. And in that silence, every memory comes rushing back sharp and uninvited. The way she laughed, the way her hair caught the light, the little habits I used to love, the way we used to talk late into the night, the plans we made that will never happen. It's cruel how the world can be so normal around you when your heart is unraveling. People keep scrolling, keep texting, keep living, and you're there still holding pieces of someone who's gone. During the day, I can pretend. I can distract myself with music, with conversation, with work. I can laugh, I can make plans, I can convince myself I'm fine. But at night, all that pretense evaporates. Night doesn't let you lie to yourself. Night makes the absence louder than any noise, the longing sharper than any pain. And it's not just sadness, it's that hollow ache in your chest, the one that doesn't have words, the one that sits there quiet and steady, reminding you of everything you lost. And in that stillness, you start to question yourself. Did I love too much? Did I care too much? Was I not enough? Could I have done something differently? You replay the conversations, the good nights, the fights, the silences. You try to find the exact moment it all went wrong, the exact word, the exact choice. And no matter how much you search, it doesn't matter. Because sometimes it's not about what you did. It's not about what they did. It's just that some things aren't meant to last. And yet night doesn't care about meaning. Night just opens the wound wider, just reminds you that the one person you wanted to stay is no longer there. That's when it hit me. The nights weren't making me weaker. They were showing me what I hadn't been willing to face during the day. I started noticing patterns in the way I thought about her, the way I checked my phone hoping for a message that would never come, the way I replayed our last conversation, analyzing every pause, every word, every okay that felt heavier than it should, the way I imagined a different outcome, as if wishing hard enough could rewrite reality. I realized that part of the pain came from me giving her more than I gave myself. I cared so deeply that I lost track of my own needs. I bent over backward to match her energy, to prove my love, to anticipate her feelings. And now without her, that imbalance became painfully clear. My heart was trained to give, but not always to protect itself. I saw how I had been chasing consistency from someone who couldn't offer it. How I had built a world where her approval mattered more than my own peace. And suddenly, the nights made sense. They weren't just lonely, they were mirrors. Mirrors reflecting the patterns I had repeated for years. The ways I gave too much, the ways I stayed too long. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It wasn't that I didn't deserve love. It was that I loved someone who wasn't ready to stay. Someone whose absence left more than just silence. It left a gap where I had invested too much, too quickly, too fully. And in that reflection, there was also clarity. Pain was teaching me about my boundaries, about the difference between care and overcare, about the value of giving love to those who could meet me halfway, not just taking it for granted. Night became less of a punishment and more of a teacher. Each hour spent awake, each tear shed, each memory revisited was a lesson in self-awareness. I realized I couldn't force someone to stay. I couldn't bend my heart around their hesitations or their inability to commit. And as much as it hurt, understanding that was freeing. It was the first step toward protecting myself. The first step toward respecting my own heart as much as I had respected hers. The nights still hurt, but now they carried meaning. They weren't just reminders of loss, they were reminders of growth. Reminders that my love had been real, that my care had been deep, that my heart was capable of giving fully. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to learn how to give it to myself as well. The first nights I tried to change how I felt, I failed. I thought maybe I could trick my heart, distract my mind, or numb the ache with noise and movement. But grief isn't a problem you solve. It's a presence you sit with until it no longer controls you. So I started small. I stopped rereading old messages. I stopped imagining her next move, stopped hoping for signs, stopped reaching into the empty space she left behind. I deleted the photos I didn't need, muted the notifications I compulsively checked, and told myself the truth. She isn't coming back. Not the way I imagined, not the way I wanted. I began creating boundaries I had never known I deserved. Boundaries that weren't about anger or bitterness, but about self-respect. I stopped answering when I didn't want to. Stopped chasing conversations that led nowhere. Stopped over-explaining my feelings to someone who couldn't hold them. I started giving my attention only to the people and things that reflected care back to me. And with those boundaries came a subtle power shift. I wasn't consumed by her absence anymore. The night still whispered her name, still nudged memories into sharp focus, but I was no longer collapsing under them. I observed the pain, acknowledged it, let it move through me, and then returned to myself. I was no longer the person bending, waiting, and stretching my heart to fit someone else's inconsistency. I was steady, I was anchored. I replaced desperation with selectiveness. I matched energy instead of chasing it. I learned that showing care didn't require sacrificing my own peace. I realized that being alone at night didn't have to be punishment. It could be reflection, a time to breathe, a space to understand my own heart. The nights didn't stop being lonely immediately. They never do. But now, the silence was softer. It was a quiet room where I could hear myself think, where I could notice patterns, where I could prepare to love again, not someone else, but myself first. The ache became tempered by clarity. The longing became tempered by choice. I realized that part of healing isn't forgetting, isn't rushing, isn't trying to feel normal again. Healing is learning how to stay whole even when the world is quiet. Healing is sitting with the hurt until it teaches you what it means to protect your heart, to honor your needs, and to see that love isn't a game of endurance. It's a reflection of mutual care, and you deserve to experience it fully with someone willing to meet you there. Night was no longer a place where I broke. It was where I built myself back up. Eventually the nights became quieter, not because the memories disappeared, but because I stopped letting them control me. I no longer felt like a ghost wandering through someone else's absence. Instead, I learned to exist fully in my own presence. I started noticing the small ways I reclaimed myself. I laughed without guilt. I made plans without hesitation. I let friends in without fear of being too much. I learned to fill the quiet with my own voice, not the echo of someone else's. And slowly I began to recognize a simple truth. The pain didn't break me. It refined me. I understood now that loving someone who couldn't stay wasn't a failure. It wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of timing, of readiness, of circumstances beyond my control. I had loved deeply, and that capacity for love remained mine. My heart was intact. My integrity was intact. And the nights, once a reminder of what I lost, became a testament to what I had survived. I still remember the ache, the longing, the late hours where silence felt heavier than anything else. But now that ache sits beside strength, not despair. I carry the lessons instead of the bitterness. I honor the love I gave, but I no longer tether my happiness to someone else's choices. I walk away from the nights with my head held higher, with patience, with calm, and with the knowledge that my heart is valuable enough to wait for someone who chooses me fully. It hurts, and it will hurt for a while, but it won't break me. Pain didn't claim me. It taught me. It sharpened my awareness. It taught me boundaries. It taught me self-respect. And most of all, it taught me that being alone at night doesn't mean being unloved. It means I'm ready to love myself fiercely, completely, without compromise. The nights are still there. They always will be, but I am no longer afraid of them. I am no longer haunted by what could have been. I am here. I am whole. And when morning comes, I rise, not as someone broken, but as someone who has endured. someone who has grown, someone who is ready for what is meant to be, rather than clinging to what never was. Pain didn't break me, it refined me, and now I am ready. I think the hardest part about something ending is realizing it was already ending while you were still trying to save it. When I look back now, I can see it clearly. The small pauses, the delayed replies, the way their voice changed just slightly. Not enough to call it out, but enough to feel it. But back then, I called it stress. I called it timing. I called it, we're just going through a phase. Because admitting it wasn't meant to last would have meant admitting I was holding on to something already slipping through my hands. It didn't start badly. That's the thing. It started with intensity, with late night conversations that made sleep feel optional, with inside jokes that felt sacred, with that rush of feeling chosen, like out of everyone in the world, they saw me. And when you feel seen like that, you don't question it. You don't prepare for it to end. You just lean in. I leaned in fully. I memorized their patterns, their favorite songs, the way they said my name when they were tired. I built a version of the future in my head without even realizing it. Not a marriage and forever. Nothing dramatic, just consistency. Just comfort. Just them. Staying. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like I was the only one building. They still talked to me, still laughed, still said the right things. But something was missing. Effort. And when effort slowly disappears, you start replacing it with your own. I texted first more often. I asked deeper questions. I reassured them when they seemed distant. I made excuses for their silence. They're just busy. They're going through something. It's not about you. And maybe it wasn't. But that didn't change the feeling. The subtle loneliness of being connected to someone who is already detaching. I felt it before I admitted it. That quiet instinct that whispers, this feels different now. But I ignored it because I didn't want to be dramatic. Because I didn't want to lose them. Because I thought love meant fighting harder when things got uncertain. What I didn't understand yet was that love isn't proven by how hard you fight alone. And sometimes something isn't falling apart because you didn't try enough. Sometimes it's falling apart because it was never meant to stay together. But I wasn't ready to accept that yet, so I stayed. And I tried and I hoped, even when deep down a quiet part of me already knew this wasn't going to last. The realization didn't hit all at once. It wasn't some dramatic fight. No screaming, no slam doors, no final speech about how we want different things. It was quieter than that. It was in the space between texts. The way replies became shorter. The way conversations that used to flow for hours started feeling forced after 5 minutes. I remember staring at my phone one night, reading the same dry message over and over, trying to find hidden meaning in it. Maybe they were tired, maybe they didn't mean it that way, maybe I was overthinking. I was always the one overthinking. But overthinking only happens when something feels off, and something felt off. They didn't ask about my day the way they used to. They didn't notice small changes anymore. They didn't look at me the same. And when someone stops noticing you, that's when it starts ending. I tried to compensate. I became lighter, easier, less needy. I stopped bringing up things that bothered me. I told myself not to ruin the vibe. I convinced myself that if I could just be a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little less emotional, maybe it would go back to how it was. But here's the truth I didn't want to face. When something is fading, you can't love it back to life. You can't effort your way into someone's certainty. You can't compete with someone's indifference, and I started to feel tired. Not of them, but of carrying it. Carrying the conversations, carrying the reassurance, carrying the hope. It felt like holding water in my hands. The tighter I tried to grip it, the faster it slipped through my fingers. There was one moment I'll never forget. We were together, physically in the same space, but emotionally it felt like there was an ocean between us. They were talking, smiling, present, but not with me. And that's when it hit. You can feel alone even when someone is sitting right next to you. That kind of loneliness is different. It's heavy, because it forces you to admit something. You're fighting for something the other person already let go of. I went home that night with a quiet ache in my chest. Not heartbreak, not yet, just clarity trying to break through denial. I lay in bed replaying everything. The beginning, the excitement, the promises that weren't promises but felt like them. And for the first time, I allowed the thought to fully form. Maybe this isn't temporary. Maybe this isn't a phase. Maybe this is the end, just stretched out slowly so it doesn't look like one. And that's when the question changed. It stopped being, how do I fix this? And started becoming, why am I trying to save something that doesn't want to stay? That's a painful question, because once you ask it, you can't unsee the answer. And the answer was simple. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It wasn't that I didn't try hard enough. It wasn't that I failed. It was that this, whatever it was never meant to last. And deep down, I think we both knew it. I was just the only one still trying to pretend otherwise. Letting go didn't happen the day it ended. It happened in layers. First, I stopped arguing in my head. I stopped replaying conversations trying to decode where it shifted. I stopped rewriting the past to make it feel fixable. Because once you see something clearly, you can't go back to pretending. I realized I wasn't actually scared of losing them. I was scared of losing the version of myself that believed this was finally it. The version of me that thought, maybe this time it'll stay. That's what I was grieving. Not just the person, but the hope. And hope is harder to bury than people. At first, I wanted answers, closure, a clean explanation I could hold in my hands. But the truth is, not everything ends with clarity. Some things fade because they were only meant to teach you something, not stay with you forever. And when I finally stopped fighting the ending, something strange happened. I felt lighter, still sad, still disappointed, but lighter. Because I wasn't dragging something behind me anymore. I wasn't trying to convince someone to see my value. I wasn't overextending myself to maintain something that was already collapsing. I started noticing how much of myself I had minimized to make it work. How often I swallowed words. How often I acted unbothered. How often I accepted less than I needed just to avoid losing them. And that realization hurt, because it meant I wasn't just losing them. I had been losing myself too. But here's the part that changed everything. I didn't hate them. I didn't turn cold. I didn't decide love was stupid. I didn't convince myself I'd never care again. I just understood. Some people come into your life not to stay, but to show you what you tolerate, to show you how deeply you can love, to show you where your boundaries should have been. And once the lesson is learned, the connection has no more purpose. That doesn't make it meaningless, it just makes it temporary. I stopped romanticizing what it could have been. I stopped imagining alternate endings. I stopped wishing they would wake up one day and suddenly become the version I needed. Because if someone has to transform completely to love you properly, they were never aligned with you to begin with. Letting go wasn't loud, it was quiet. It was choosing not to text, not to check their social media, not to ask mutual friends how they were doing. It was choosing peace over curiosity. And slowly I started feeling like myself again. The version of me that didn't revolve around someone else's attention. The version of me that felt steady without external reassurance. The version of me that understood if it was meant to last, it wouldn't have required me to shrink. And that's when the bitterness disappeared. Because I wasn't rejected. I was redirected. It wasn't taken from me. It was removed. And there's a difference. I used to think every ending meant failure. Like if something didn't last, it must not have been real. Or I must not have tried hard enough. Or maybe I just wasn't enough to make someone stay. But now I see it differently. Some things are real even if they're temporary. Some connections are intense because they were never designed for longevity. They burn bright. They feel significant. They teach you something and then they end. Not because you ruined them. Not because they were fake, but because they fulfilled their purpose. It was never meant to last. And that doesn't make it a waste. It made it a chapter. I stopped asking, why didn't it work? And started asking, what did it teach me? It taught me how quickly I attach when I feel understood. It taught me how deeply I love when I feel chosen. It taught me how easily I ignore my intuition when I'm afraid to lose someone. But it also taught me something else. I don't want half effort. I don't want uncertainty disguised as mystery. I don't want potential. I want consistency. I want something that doesn't require me to question it every night. Something that doesn't feel like I'm constantly auditioning for reassurance. Something that doesn't slowly drain me while I call it love. And if that means some things end early, good. Because I'd rather something end than stay in a space where it was quietly deteriorating. I no longer romanticize what we could have been. Because what we could have been would have required them to become someone else. And love shouldn't require transformation to feel secure. It should feel aligned. Now, when I look back, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. Gratitude that it didn't drag on longer than it needed to. Gratitude that it showed me my patterns. Gratitude that it forced me to raise my standards instead of lowering them further. The ending wasn't a punishment, it was protection. And maybe the most powerful realization of all is this. If it was meant to last, it would have required effort from both sides. It would have felt steady. It would have grown naturally instead of being forced. Love that's meant for you doesn't make you anxious. It doesn't make you question your worth. It doesn't slowly fade while you're fighting to keep it alive. It stays. And if it doesn't stay, let it go. Because not everything that feels intense is meant to be permanent. Some people are lessons, some are mirrors, some are reminders, and some are simply experiences that prepare you for something deeper. But it was never meant to last. And now, I'm finally okay with that. Not because it didn't matter, but because I matter more.